I think we'll go ahead and get started, guys.
Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Stephanie. I'm an alcoholic. And I'm going to leave these doors open because I think we'll probably have a few stragglers, plus it's super hot. And I just want to keep a little ventilation going here. So, yeah, that's right. Okay, so I'm super blessed and like honored to be here. I was really happy when they invited me to speak at this event. And when I was asked to participate, at first it was like, well, do you want to do some sort of exercise or something? And I'm like, no, I didn't want to do that. I wanted to actually share the spiritual experience that I've had and how my life changed and how fitness and recovery kind of came together for me and created that. And I didn't want to just do like fitness tips or stuff like that, because it's like we already have plenty of fitness tips and nobody does them anyway. So we're going to talk about all of the the mindset part of that. I don't know, and I want to talk about my focus to be on my story. I'm going to tell you guys that first, just from a certain point, because we're not going all the way back or we'll be here all day. But I'll talk about my story, and then I want to talk about the principles of this program that I've utilized to reach and then to maintain kind of a fit and healthy recovery. So that's the goal here. And so thanks for being here. I really appreciate it. My story. So I have for many, many, many years, like most of us, right? Many of us, not most of us, but many of us, I was just this very miserable, depressed, unhealthy person. And I've been at this recovery thing for a really long time. I came into the program when I was 20. I went like forced, by my parents because they were going to kick me out of the house if I didn't, stop. And so, and I'm going to turn 50 next month. And so I've been around the program, but I don't even quite have 4 years sober. Okay, so I've had many periods of sobriety, followed by relapse, and y'all know the story. So I've been at it a while, and I'm just gonna shorten the whole story for us to August 2015. Okay, so I was, you guessed it, miserable, right? Again, I had been kind of on and off again, sober for a while. And we had been in Montana for about 10 years at that time. My son had been born in 2005, and so we'd been there since then. And since, when we moved to Montana, I was a disaster at that time, but I was pregnant, so I wasn't drinking. And I ended up, we had the baby. Of course, I started drinking again, and again, I just kind of had those periods of up and down, some sobriety. I got connected to the program, but by 2015, I was going to meetings, but I wasn't necessarily staying sober. And all of my drinking that happened in Montana was hidden. So it was hiding. I was no longer like the early 20s, going out partying, dancing on tables, sleeping with strangers, all of that whole thing was like over. And now I was here, I was married, I was a mom, I'm a lawyer, I have to keep my shit together in order to manage this. So I was managing my image or whatever, like we all do, right? And but I had made great connections in Columbia Falls with the women. I had actually helped start a women's meeting there. And I was super isolated, I would say, because my using and my drinking was so isolated. So I felt really super alone. And I felt like at that time that I was kind of beyond help. This program would work for other people, and I could see it working for other people, but it wasn't going to work for me. It couldn't work for me. And it wasn't that I thought I was better than other people. I think I thought I was way worse than other people. And it's an arrogance, really. I mean, it's like a reverse arrogance. I'm thinking, not like, oh, that's not for me, but it was more like, whoa, this isn't gonna work for me because I'm so bad that I can't be helped. And so that particular brand of arrogance kept me wasted, like, for decades, right? So kind of coming off of that just a little, I had body weight issues like everybody else. You know, I mean, people struggle with their fitness and their health. I had gained a bunch of weight with my son, but even before that, you know, I'd struggled with putting on weight. And then I think one time in 2003, I went on this whack diet and I lost like 40 pounds in 9 weeks, right? I was like, dang. And I think I maintained that weight loss for like 5 minutes. Like, that was it. And then it was like pizza and I'm back on it, right? And so, but I was, you know, I was drinking. I was a mess, you know? So even though I would have like the drive to reach that goal during that time, I think I even stopped drinking during that 9 weeks because I wanted to hit that goal. But then it all fell apart. And so, you know, we try so many different things, and I think back over time, all the things I've tried, you know, the diets, yeah, I did like, you know, Atkins, Weight Watchers, the lemon juice and Tabasco, HCG, you know, all these things that we do, you know, to try. I had boot camp. I think I might have tried yoga, but that didn't last. Just all the things that I tried, they, you know, they just, I always ended up the same, and that would be like miserable, fat, drunk. You know, I mean, that was always the same. So back to 2015, I returned from a vacation that we'd been on. It was like a 3-week vacation. I gained like between 8 and 10 pounds. And at that time, I was kind of in a holding pattern of, I was abusing Benadryl. So I was, you know, the handfuls of Benadryl, and I could get, you know, a couple wine boxes here or there, you know, but even I was hiding from my family too. So I couldn't be drinking in an obvious way around my family. So the Benadryl kind of filled that gap for me, right, in the evenings. So that's where I was. And this woman named Lauren reached out to me, and I had met Lauren in California when I went to visit my parents. She was this insane Zumba instructor, and at the time I loved Zumba. I believe I was even maybe doing some, I was an instructor then, I can't remember, but you know, she contacted me and said, hey, you know, I'm starting this online fitness group, this challenge group, you know, do you want to be a part of this group with me? And of course I'm like, I know everything about health and fitness. You know, this isn't going to work for me. Why would I spend the money? And honestly, I felt like I know I'm not going to stick to it anyway. So why spend the money to do that? But there was something about Lauren. She had such an energy, and just, I loved her. She was 10 years sober too at the time. And she was one of our people, right? And so I was like, immediately, I was connected to her, and I was stalking her on Facebook, and she just had this like crazy fire, and I was drawn to her, and as I was writing this, I'm like a fat little moth. I was drawn to Lauren, you know, and anything to be around her energy, you know, and so I'm like, I'm willing to pay for that. So I said yes. And as it turns out, it ended up being one of the greatest decisions I've ever made, right? So I joined her group. It's this little online group, Facebook group thing, and then we get, you know, workouts, you know, video workout programs, basic nutrition program, and then we're in the group and we're sharing our sweaty selfies and pictures of our food and, you know, all that. We have the support of Lauren in there. So it was a great supportive environment. And I did feel a connection with the other women. That was really great. And I remembered as I was preparing for this, there was this one woman who had some really serious, she had some real like eating disorder type issues. And I remember she would talk about things, and I did some messaging with her, and I really encouraged her to start being kind to herself. I'm like, you know how we do, like, we're so fucked up, but we think we're gonna help somebody else though, you know? So I remember telling her, you know, oh, you know, I hope that you'll be kind to yourself and, kind of some self-love kind of thing. And for whatever reason, I don't know, I really remember those conversations with her, and there was a connection made there for me that this was good. Like, this was good for me. Even though I was still using and drinking, this thing felt good. And so, and I may get emotional. I've cried several times today, I don't know why, but I made a decision at that time, even though I hated who I was and what was going on, I decided I'm going to keep doing this thing. I'm going to keep doing the good, even in the face of the bad, the hating behavior, the sabotaging of what I was doing. I was like, I'm going to keep doing it. So I had to start kind of loving myself through taking those actions. And I really think that was my first movement toward self-discipline, because I was going to do it whether I wanted to or not, and whether I felt like I was going to do it or not. And so a few weeks after that, it was going well for me, and I just kept doing it, but I kept using and drinking, But a few weeks later, I found this picture of Lauren online. Like, she posted something online with this picture of her, and I was like, damn, like, I want to look like that, and I was so impressed by this picture that I took it home to my husband, and I said, look at this picture of Lauren. I'm going to show it to you guys too, because I carry it, because it was so meaningful to me. But this was the picture of Lauren, right? And she was on, I wanted to hate her too, but she's really nice. And so I saw that, and I showed him, and he said, I remember his words exactly. He said, wow, he said, that's what you're gonna look like, right? And so now hold on, because I think there's a lot of gut reactions we have to a comment like that. My husband's very supportive of me. My God, he's stayed with me. So his words, when they came to me, I could have reacted a number of ways. I could have reacted and said, what do you mean you don't love me the way I am? Oh, like women do, because we do. And, or I could have said, hell yeah, I'm gonna look like that. There are so many reactions that I could have had, but I just laughed. I'm like, oh, bless your soul, whatever, but I just laughed, and I went and got my car because I was going to go to the office. And so I started driving to the office, and I remember thinking about, for some reason, my brain went back to that conversation, and I said, wow, that was a weird reaction. And I said to myself out loud, why did I laugh? And I was right. I remember where I was. I was at the intersection of Highway 2 and 206. And I was sitting there at that light. And when I asked that question out loud, my goodness, I got an answer. I couldn't believe it. It came right to me in my head. It was a voice in my head, not like some big verbal sound, but I really do. I believe that God was talking to me. And he said, it's because you don't believe. And I was like, oh. Wow, and it was like this neon sign, the sky burst open, and it was like, oh, here's your problem. It was telling me that I didn't believe that I could look like this, right? I didn't believe it. And so I thought only, special people look like that, or lucky people, or people with good genes, or, somehow people get like that. Or they just come like that, right? Right? They're just born like that, But for whatever reason, I did not have the belief that I could do that. And so I really feel that day, that was a spiritual experience for me. And I recognized the error of my thought process. My thought process of thinking that people just got that. It was just something given to them. And what I recognize is thousands of people do it. They change their bodies like that. They are succeeding with it. And all I had to do really was do what they did. If there are people doing it, I just have to do what they do, right? And I knew that my way wasn't working, obviously, right? My way was not working in the fitness thing. Even though I'd started taking some steps, my history told me that probably I was gonna end up failing anyway, right? But because that was my way. But I had to be open to help. I had to follow this simple program of this video where you just press the button and they tell you what to do. It's not that hard. Follow a simple eating plan. It came in this little neat little book, it just told me exactly what to do. And I had to be coachable, right? And listen to what people were telling me. And most importantly, I had to be willing to do whatever it takes, right? So I recognized that, of course, I could have my best body, a body like that, my best body, if I was willing to take the action to get it. Now, I don't know about you, but I think that sounds a lot like another program I was involved in, or another group I was involved with, right? I mean, the parallels there are staggering, I think. Here in this program, we admit defeat, we believe that something bigger can help us, right? We accept the help, listen to your sponsors, stop being an egotistical jerk, and actually have some humility, and do whatever it takes, AKA go to any lengths, right? And so within just a couple of weeks, I was able to take that amazing breakthrough on Highway 206 of belief and transfer it over onto recovery, or the program, for me. And what I saw was it could work for me like it had for others, right? I just had to follow the simple system, which is the steps. I needed to humble myself and be willing and never stop taking action. You can't stop taking action in this program. We all know that. But for me, I finally saw that I was not this unique snowflake person that just couldn't be helped. Of course it's going to work for me. Just do what you're told, just like it says, and it just all clicked for me with that. And my obsession to drink was removed September 11th, 2015. So, and I always hated those people that would say, oh, the obsession to drink was just removed and I'm so relieved. And I was like, now I'm one of them. But yeah, so, I'm going to be talking about the principles that apply, but I want to show you my picture, okay? So, since that time, let's see, it was 2015. In 2017, I was in my first bodybuilding show, right? It was my very first one. Last year, I did 3 shows, and this year I'll be doing a couple in October, like October fall. So what changed is that fitness has become my way of life, and it's completely integral to my recovery. I got the body, that I wanted, and it's not always perfect, it's not static, you got to work for it, but I got it through consistent daily application of simple plans, because that's really all it is. I had the willingness to do whatever it took, and even when it was hard or it really sucked, like I didn't want to do it. And that's kind of what we'll focus on. And so, that's my story. It took me 25 years to get this shit, right? to make this all connect for me and to get sober, So, the most important lessons for me, and I think maybe, for other people too, is I'm not different. I had to get over the idea that I was different somehow than other people. And I'm like anyone else, and that this program will work, if you work it, right? Period. That's it. There's nothing special about you, or, the program's special, but there's nothing special. So it will work if you actually do it. And my favorite tip, this is kind of a little bit off topic, but it's my favorite tip that I always like to share when I'm talking about recovery, is that never stop coming back. It'll make me cry. I think people give up, and we see a lot of people die, because they give up or they stop coming because they're ashamed or embarrassed. Oh my God, the things I did in this program. I've done some heinous things, and even in the program, things where I thought people would stop speaking to me or treat me differently, and they didn't. And no matter what, even if they had, I have a right. I had a right to be here, and so do you. We all have the right to be here, and there's always hope, is what I always want people to know, that I never stopped coming back. I don't know what that was that kept me coming, but it must have been some little spark of hope inside of me that said, keep going, keep going. And I did, and I feel really lucky and blessed to be here. Anyway, so let's talk about the recovery fitness connection, because isn't that what this was called? So, and part of what kind of made me want to talk about this topic was I see a lot of women, I'm friends with a lot of women who have decades of sobriety, and they still struggle mightily with their health and fitness, their emotional eating, different things. They're still really struggling kind of with this insanity in that area of their life. And honestly, I don't have their answer. I don't know what their personal answer might be. But I know that my answer has involved the principles from this program, and I would say even my very best friend, who recently celebrated 10 years. So funny. I used to drag her to an AA meeting like way back when I lived in California, and she'd be like, "These women are weird." Now she has more sobriety, right, than me. Yeah, now she's like a total book thumper, like all of it, so it's kind of great. But anyway, she has struggled with her weight and her eating we've been friends since we were 9 years old. She has struggled with that stuff since she was in her teens, and has continued despite her amazing, strong recovery. And I remember a conversation with her, and I was trying to explain, it's the same thing. It's the same principles, whatever it takes, going to any lengths. And I'm going to talk about that with you guys, but I would, it really is the same thing. So I think we have to really remember that we don't have a drinking problem. We have a thinking problem. And so when it comes to this health and fitness part of it, we have to keep that in mind, because it is a mindset that is very much the answer, or the solution is your mind and your mindset. And it is not diets or products or exercises or gurus or whatever. People are always into the quick fix. This is the next thing that's going to make me there. I did the same thing. Believe me, I did the same thing. But what I found out is that changing my body was in my head. It was something I had to change in my head and my thinking. And so we're going to talk about that. And before I do, I just want to be really super clear that the things that I'm talking about have really very little to do with how you look. And I think it's easy to assume that people who focus on their fitness or they're visibly fit, that it's easy to assume that they're self-obsessed or selfish, self-centered, and I really want to challenge you to open your mind and look at people like that, maybe in a little bit different light, and recognize that true self-loving action is none of those things. It's an act of discipline that is loving yourself, and self-love goes beyond physical, and for me, I have to ask myself, what is good for me right now? And if we look back to that group that I was in, I made that decision about, I'm going to keep doing these things that are good for me. And that was my first act of discipline. And I haven't stopped. I haven't stopped doing that, and I don't really have any plans to stop, because I recognize that that's my form of self-love. And so doing hard things, forcing myself to do hard things that really is discipline. That's like a definition of discipline, but that's changed me, I think, forever. I don't know that even if I were to relapse tomorrow, I think there would still be a lot of change there in me. That's not going to go away. All right, so I think the outer body, my outer body, for me, and when I was writing this, I had to remember I had to talk about my own experience, right? I can't be going like this. I talk about my own experience, but my outer body for me is a reflection of my growth, and my growth in this program and the principles of the program. And so surrender, humility, acceptance, willingness is a big one, open-mindedness, all of that. That's what my body symbolizes to me. Of course, it's nice to look in the mirror and appreciate what you see, but at the same time, it symbolizes so much more for me than just looking good in a bikini on the stage, right? Because when I'm on that stage, I'm really not there for the plastic trophy, thanks anyway, or compliments or any of that. I'm really more there to say, look how far God has brought me in this journey. Look at the work that I've done to be here and to be where I am now. And I'm really there to just kind of show the miracle of recovery in the flesh, right? A little too much flesh, maybe for some, but it's kind of it's a weird balance, but it's super important for me to have people understand it's just not about the body and how I look, and I encourage you to think about that too, because taking care of ourselves, I just think it's one of the greatest gifts that we can give ourselves. All right, so moving on into action, right? That's what the book says. We are alcoholics and we're undisciplined, and we have to move right into action if things are going to take place. The book says that. That's what it says. So we can't rest on our laurels, because we know what happens when the laurels get rested on, right? Everything goes to hell in a handbasket really quick. So, it's the same thing with fitness. You have to remain in action. And it doesn't really matter what you're doing. Consistency, that's, if you were taking notes, that'd be a word to write down, right? Consistency, whether you want to build your biceps or shrink your butt or write your 4-step, it doesn't matter what it is. Consistent action is what's going to get you to your goal. And so I like to share this about my 4-step, because I saw it as this huge insurmountable project. Lots of people do. It's like, oh my God, I have to do this, and it's awful. And I was working on my bodybuilding and all this stuff, so I knew that the consistency, I could see, if I did this action over a certain amount of months, I could see a result, right? So I thought, okay, so with my 4th step, I'm going to consistently do 10 minutes a day. That's all I'm going to do. That's it. No big deal, no sitting down and crying and slogging through it for hours, and it was 10 minutes. I was getting up in the morning at the time and doing some reading and having my coffee and whatever. So just for 10 minutes, I would focus on that thing and do it. It was done in a month. It was over. It was done. And so, it said for me that those little actions can add up to really big results. And the same can go for health and fitness. People get really frustrated because they start a program and they're not thin the next day, or they're not seeing muscular development within a week. It's that's not how it works. It really doesn't. And like the diet I told you I did, like 9 weeks, 40 pounds, right? That shit doesn't last because it's been done too fast, right? And you have sidestepped the requirement of the grind, right? I think that, you know, it's the grind of, I am ad-libbing, but it's good. The grind of working to build your body and change your body that's where the real change happens. It's not just dropping the weight and being, you know, in your size 6 pants. It's the work that you do that actually changes you as an individual. And so you can't skip that part. And I think you would agree that even in this program, you can't skip the hard shit. If you skip the hard shit, you end up coming back saying, I'm here for my first meeting since my last drink. Because you have to do that hard stuff in order to get the growth. Because and for me, if I'm not growing, I'm stagnant or I'm moving backwards, right? And so the only thing that gets you that growth is to keep doing the work. It was a long explanation of that one, but we have a lot of time, it seems. How are we doing for time?
5:05.
It's 5:05. We're doing really good, actually. All right. So the next one is humility. I think that's something I really had to grasp onto when it came to getting fit, because I mean, especially nowadays, like we have so much information available to us on the internet, for God's sake. We can look up anything, right? Anything. And say, well, I know this now. People, you know something because you looked it up on the internet, whatever. But I think we are so arrogant when it comes to health and fitness a lot of times. And maybe not because you know all the methods and ways, but you get that kind of snowflake mentality again of, well, that doesn't work for me. Because like people would make a suggestion, well, hey, what about this? Well, no, that won't work for me. Or I start doing a program or something, and immediately I'd be like, well, I can't do that part. I have to change that a little bit, because that's just, that doesn't work for me. And these people just don't understand my life, And so you're back into that kind of I'm so unique thing. And with the working out, I had to accept I'm not different, and if I just do this stuff, I'm going to get the result. So really what I had to do was just shut up and do it, and stop talking and stop thinking about it, and just I love video workout programs. I think they're an amazing place for people to start, because all you do is press the damn button and they tell you just stand there and do what they say. That's hard for alcoholics, isn't it? And but it's funny, my son is 13, and he's just talking about how, I'm fat, I gotta get abs, and all these. I'm like, whatever. But he has a little role, like he's gonna grow any moment, right? But he thinks that he wants to change his body. I'm like, well, here you go, press play. We're going to show you how this works. He sees me and his dad work out. But he has to learn that process too, of just do what you're told and move forward, and you're going to see these results. And he's, I'm seeing him over the last few weeks starting to just adopt that mindset a little bit. And my God, if I can instill that in my child at this age, that would be great. But you just have to he just has to be consistent, because he wants that end result just like we all do. He wants it right now. And you just don't get the result without that work. So, okay, so here's a word on feelings. This is another little side note that I just want to get in here, that before I got sober, I really let my feelings dictate everything. And I think that we talk about that a lot in meetings. I know the women talk about it a lot. But certainly, if I, felt a certain way, I would decide, well, I'm not going to do, let's say, I'm trying to think of an example. Well, I'm too tired. I'm not going to do my workout. So I'm letting my feelings dictate whether I'm going to do that thing. And I had to stop being a prisoner of my feelings, or, you know, being, held captive by those feelings that dictated what I was going to do. And I saw this little thing, and I use this all the time with people who talk to me about how hard their lives are, blah, blah, blah. And I say, your goals don't care how you feel. So the goal, whatever goal you have, it doesn't matter how you feel. So even on the days when I was too tired to work out, didn't want to work on my 4-step, felt afraid to do amends, no time to do my food prep. I'm sorry, I don't have time for that. I did it anyway. Like, you just have to make yourself do shit. And that's what's going to get you forward. If you let your feelings dictate all the time how you're, you know, what action you're going to take, you're not going to get very far. Because for me, feelings wise, God, my son says, I don't feel like doing, you know, I don't want to get up, I don't want to do this and that. I'm like, yeah, I would rather just lay in bed. And honestly, I mean, I don't say this to my son, but I'd rather just lay on the couch and drink and just watch TV and do nothing. That's what I would like to do, because that's, you know, we're programmed not to do much. We don't want to be uncomfortable. And so, we've learned, like, in society, there are certain norms now. We can't just do that. But, you know, you can't let how you feel dictate how you're going to move forward in life. And I really had to see that. And so that brings us to my favorite, which is willingness. Willingness. Oh my gosh. Going to any length. This to me is like the biggest stumbling block for people when it comes to reaching goals, I think, of any kind. Like, it really doesn't matter, but especially in health and fitness. The parallels between, you know, like recovery and fitness here and willingness are really, really clear to me. Before I got sober this time, I wasn't willing to go to any length. I thought, you know, you think you are. I think we like to say that we are. Oh, I'm willing to go to any lengths to do that. I think in a lot of cases I would say that, and that wasn't true. I wasn't willing to go to any length to be sober or fit. You know, I was lazy, I was undisciplined, I was inconsistent, I didn't want to be uncomfortable. God forbid I have to do something that makes me uncomfortable. I wanted to eat whatever I wanted. I wanted to do the least amount of work to get the biggest result. And, you know, and also, I was still a victim, right? I'm a victim in my own mind of life and circumstances and pain and all these things. And, you know, my situation, it goes back to that unique, I think I'm special, you know, that my situation is so different, you know, that I am qualified to just lay here and do nothing and expect big results, right? So I was not willing. And I love, in health and fitness, it's the same as recovery in that the definition of insanity fits this too, because we're doing the same thing over and over and over again, and we are expecting a different result. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen, just like it wasn't going to happen drinking. So I would just stay, again, with fat, miserable, and drunk, because the insanity just kept going. So, but once I got willing to, like, get uncomfortable, to be tired and do it anyway, it didn't matter if it was 10 o'clock at night. If I had a workout that I was supposed to do, and I'd worked all day, dealt with my kid, made dinner, if I hadn't done it by the end of the day, I still did it. You just have to do it. I had to be willing to feel hunger. You know, I'm not gonna die. You're not gonna die from being hungry. And that was, for me, that was like, you know, we think, we do though. And it sounds so silly to say that, but, you know, dieting for these shows is no joke. It's no joke at all. It's hard, you know, but feeling hunger is just, you're just feeling hungry. It's fine. So I had to be willing to feel hunger. I had to be willing to face my feelings or deal with situations instead of eating, right? Because I'd much rather eat a tub of ice cream than go deal with some uncomfortable situation at work or with a client, you know. And really, I had to be open to learning new things. and accepting new information. And once I began to be willing in those areas, right, my life completely changed. And the same thing with sobriety was once I began to face the pain, take responsibility for my life, right? Take responsibility for my own choices that I'd made and accept responsibility and kind of drop the whole like, I'm okay facade instead of, you know, faking and resenting and playing the victim, like all that stuff. Once I let go of all that and became ready to face stuff, I got sober too. So willingness is just like, how bad do you want it? It's that question, right? We hear that question, how bad do you want it? Well, you gotta want it pretty bad, and you can't just give lip service, I think, to, and believe me guys, I've done all of this. Give lip service and say, hey, I wanna look like that. I wanna look like Lauren, but I don't wanna do anything. You mean I have to like not eat 3 pieces of pizza? Oh my God. You know, it's like the willingness factor is so important. It's a massive key. If you're struggling, ask yourself, and I don't care what you're struggling with, ask yourself, what am I unwilling to do in this situation? Because you will find your answer. I really believe you'll find your answer. And once you figure it out, then go do whatever it is that you're unwilling to do. And one little side note on that is, when you do hard things, when we do hard things, and we, like say, like an example is like you're scared to death to go live on Facebook, or to, you know, go and talk to a girl, or whatever, you know, whatever the thing is. Once you do that thing and you don't die, you are like, you're empowered. And then you're like, what's the next thing I can do? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And I've been building on that ever since. And I've built every single thing that's happened to me positively through the changes in my body, and the work I've done on my body has impacted my business. It impacts my family life, my recovery, everything. So, and a lot of it just comes from doing that hard stuff and overcoming and realizing I can do more. So on the willingness factor, I had a note here, just that I had this quote from Jillian Michaels. I love her. And it was like on The Biggest Loser, like ages ago, whenever that show was on. But I remember her hollering at some lady and saying, make a different choice, she said. Because if you don't make a different choice, nobody can help you. And I thought, wow, that's powerful. Because if we're not willing to make a different decision or choice, nothing will change. And I would even add, nobody can help you, not even God. Like if we're not willing to do it differently, and we're so closed off and unwilling, nothing in our lives will change. So I love that quote, and I mean, that was so many years ago, but I still really remember that very clearly. So, okay, I'm winding it up. My last principle was make a decision. That third, our third step requires us to make a decision. And really, a decision that, like, we're going to avail ourselves of direction, but not our direction, right? It's going to be direction from somewhere else. And because I lived my whole life like that self-will run riot. Self-will run riot. And so making a decision to kind of turn my life over, it's a hard concept to get, but really it's like being humble for me. I had to let go of my way and be willing to take action on a different way. That wasn't my way, right? And to take those actions in a way that was self-love, which always sounds like kind of this weird squishy term, but really for me, like I've said, that self-love is the discipline of getting fit, which was really, really instrumental for me. So it's hard. I'm never gonna say that it's not, but I do this stuff anyway. And I want you guys to know, it's not perfect. Like, it's never perfect. Sometimes I eat my little perfectly measured out meals, and sometimes, I eat my son's chocolate Easter bunny. It happens, this stuff happens, but the trick is that I get back on the horse right away, and I've learned through, relapsing too a lot of times, and having, sobriety now, what I've learned and the trick I use now is that you can start down a spiral, when the spiral begins, you don't have to go all the way down the spiral. And I think I've learned that when I know things are, whoa, man, things are getting crazy, or I eat the chocolate bunny or whatever, I don't have to go all the way down. I don't have to. I can just say, oh, what are the things that helped me? What were those things I was doing that were good for me, that felt good, and start going back up. So, and people sometimes will be like, oh, hey, take it easy, slow down, ease up, eat a burger. I know they're being kind. They mean it from a kind place. But this is what self-love looks like for me. It may look like something different for you, but that's my way of loving myself, is holding myself accountable and keeping that discipline. Doesn't mean I don't take breaks. I take rest days. I take, I do. I live, but that self-discipline has been the key to my recovery. There's no question. None. And I spent a lot of time preparing for this and it was really good for me because it made me write it down, and to really see how much it's impacted my life. So I really want to encourage everybody to explore their relationship with their body. I think that's really important. Your body and food, and your efforts at self-love, and your willingness to do hard things. Because if you're struggling, learning how to force yourself to do hard things is going to be a key. I mean, I really believe it can change your life. If you just start small. You don't have to do something major like I chose to do, but even small things like, I'm going to be really revealing here. I'm going to be able to cut this part off of my video. I'm just kidding, but I made a commitment to myself. Why would this make me cry? I made a commitment to myself in January. This is a self-love thing for me. I don't know about you guys, but taking care of just even my basic stuff like showering, brushing my teeth, things like that, those were a real struggle for me. I would go to bed at night and just be like, I'm not taking off my makeup or brushing my teeth, whatever, not washing my face. In January, I made a commitment to myself that I was not going to go to bed without brushing my teeth, ever. I'm still on my streak. Yeah. I'm very proud of myself. But and things like that seems like, well, duh. And some people will be like, well, duh, of course you brush your teeth. Like, well, as an alcoholic in recovery, there were a lot of times I didn't do that stuff. But just starting that small, do the dishes every night before you go to bed. Make sure your kitchen is clean and ready for you. Make some rice so you have it in the refrigerator for you every single day. Do those little tiny steps that you do consistently can add up to an amazing change for you, and you'll just build on this habit. So I hope that's helpful for you guys. Thanks for listening. Oh, and this chick, Lauren, just celebrated 14 years of sobriety, and she's one of my best friends. Right? Okay. Yeah. So thanks, guys.